Hi, and welcome to Conversations with Neal Andrews. My guest today is David Maron, but we have a twist on this show today. I was recently in Washington, D.C., and I was invited to the White House. And so I've invited David to come and interview me for this show. Welcome, David. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Neal. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Well, let's start off by telling the viewers why you went to Washington.
Well, that's a good question.
You can see I'm an old pro at
Yeah,
this.
that's right. I got a phone call some weeks ago asking me to reserve a date and for the possibility of being invited to the White House.
How many people attended this conference at the White House?
It was about 100 people.
Okay, so let's set the stage a little bit more. So you're invited to Washington with some others, but who's going to be there from the White House? I think that makes a big difference.
William Daley, who's the Chief of Staff, the Secretary of Transportation, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, the Secretary of Labor. And so the very first thing we did was we indicated to them that this had to be a dialogue. It could not simply be them telling us what to do. And it was very clear. They wanted us to help them pass the Jobs Act, the Jobs Bill. We particularly wanted to make sure there's a proposal that's been initiated actually in Congress, a Republican proposal, but the White House has not opposed it. And that is a proposal to remove the tax exemption for municipal bonds. Now, this may sound like a very esoteric
Right,
issue.
why don't you explain what that means?
Well, what that
exemption?
means is that when the city has to pay for a new big project,
Okay.
we usually use bonds to pay for. We sell bonds to the private community to raise the money, let's say for a parking structure.
Right,
or
investors buy the bonds.
Investors buy the bonds. And they buy the bonds at low interest because they know it's going to be tax exempt. That is to say, they won't have to pay taxes on the interest that they earn. Well, if you remove the tax exemption, all of a sudden the interest costs will go way up because now you have to compete with the other investment opportunities that they have. And so the cost to the city of a project like a parking structure or a swimming pool or street repair all of a sudden goes way up because there's no longer this tax exemption. Well, we basically said this is the wrong time to do this. I mean, maybe good some other time to remove this tax exemption, but if you do it now, the biggest source of development that's going on in all cities across the country are cities investing in their infrastructure.
Right.
No one's building houses, no one's building apartment buildings, but cities are still building roads or repaving roads. They're still building the necessary buildings they have to have. And it's the only thing that's moving our economy at all in terms of construction and what have you.
And in many ways, Neal, isn't it a great time for cities to be doing that?
It's
because
a great
the
time.
prices are cheaper,
Well,
labor's cheaper,
exactly,
the costs, so it's like you
exactly.
get much more bang for
We
the buck.
get much more bang for the buck. Now is the time, if the cities can do it, to build stuff because we get a great deal in this marketplace today. There are people bending all over themselves to bid competitively on these.
Now, did you have an opportunity to meet the president?
Well, we did.
Yep.
The key to successful bipartisan policymaking is for people on both sides to put their issues on the table clearly and be prepared to engage in a give and take. If you're going to come in with the attitude it's my way or the highway, you're not going to be successful. If you come in with the attitude that, well, this is what I want, these are the things I want, you tell me what things you want, and we'll see whether we can match up as much as we can, and if whatever we can't match up, then I'll get a little bit and you'll get a little bit, and we'll go away, and neither of us will get everything we wanted, but that's going to be a good deal. We're about out of time, and thank you, David. I appreciate so much you coming in and being my interviewer.
My pleasure.
And helping with the show.